The sun roasts us into submission, as if attempting to dehydrate the indomitable human spirit itself. My skin prickles, like the light is burrowing into my body, setting my exhausted nerves aflame. This is the desert's way of punishing lesser men. It has been 4 days of relentless travel. My camel remains indifferent as it continues to grunt in resignation of our journey. I am banded with 100 men, local to these unforgiving, barren dunes, cheap by the hour and fine spines on all of them. However, they are meagre, unsteady, uneducated, and nothing but a foot force for my sweat and toil. Not fueled with my vigour or determination. For 11 months I have carefully planned and sacrificed. I have murdered the very parts of myself that allow failure, trimming away the distractions and human weaknesses that cause second thought or doubt. Only the pure pursuit remains. Every pocket burnt dry just to be here now, with a hope precious as gold that my mission is successful. 11 months since that bastard Carter stole my right of legacy. My absolute purpose now is to see his underhanded victories undone. We are in search of a tomb, the tomb of the ancient Queen Sutekh-Amon. The crypt of an ancient queen will serve as the womb, birthing my rightful legacy in the annals of history. King Carter and his Tutankhamun could keep their wonderful things. What I am honor-bound to uncover will be nothing short of legendary. The revelation of Queen Sutekh-Amon was no fluke, nor common knowledge. I was back in London at the time, still licking my wounds from the news of Carter and conniving Carnarvon's discovery. Having received an urgent call from an entrusted informant, I was to wait in my office for his arrival. It was the very least I could do to keep steady. 4 months had passed since the news of the great Howard Carter and his discovery of a lifetime. A discovery meant for my lifetime. I had been working with the wretch for a decade. I knew more than Carter, was more able than Carter, was better than Carter. And yet, Carnarvon ripped away my funding, leaving me and my research to rot. The head of a budding flower snipped remorselessly and left to wilter in the sand. And by sheer luck, Carnarvon's gift to Carter of my funding and my time was what allowed the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. 6 years of struggle, turmoil, and abandonment, only for him to come out on top. I can't let this go. Not when I was so extremely wrong, and now to have my wounds forced in the salt of public humiliation. A knock distracts me from my ruminations. I take a deep breath, finish my drink, and prepare my professional self for a civilized conversation.
Hartswell, my boy. You've taken the sun in you I could see.
His harmless words sting, reminding me of years of fruitless labour.
And Frobisher, you old dog. I see you're still a man of ample proportions.
Frobisher was a portly man, uncomplimented by his lacking height. Unruly, thick greying hairs erupt from him like sprouts from a dying potato. Red in the cheeks, optimistic, and forever putting on quite a show, for appearances only.
May I pour you a drink?
I ask, already gripping the neck of the half-empty bottle, glugging into my glass.
You know I'll never say no, Jacob, and make these large as I come with cause for celebration.
Unless you're storing the canopic jars of Ra in your jacket, which, looking at you, may well be the case, I am not in the mood for a celebration.
Not quite, my dear, but nothing short of godly, if that helps.
I handed him his drink. Something different in his demeanour. He's quite awfully trying to hide his excitement, which, as much as I hate to admit it, is contagious.
Well, you've sorted me out in the past. Take a seat, tell me what you have. What do you know of the ancient Queen Sutekh-Amon?
Well, I know Sutekh is derived, named after the god Set, the jealous god, the usurper, the betrayer who slew his own brother Osiris. But more than that, he is the god of chaos, the desert. and ferocious storms, the bringer of tempests over the Red Land. As far as the field is concerned, she is a myth, nothing more than superstition within hieroglyphs.
Well, my boy, now this is your chance to prove otherwise. Time to show up Carter as the charlatan he is.
Okay, you have my ear.
I was recently traversing the Zamanek district and happened upon a very agreeable fellow, an antiques dealer of sorts. Upon a gentleman's agreement, he parted with a very old map at a very reasonable price, but clearly didn't understand what he was holding.
Frobisher leans into the left breast of his tight jacket and removes a narrow brown glass bottle, before quickly squeezing the cork out in a clockwise motion. Removing and unrolling a parched and decayed leather flap from its crystal contents, spilling salt everywhere, he gently brushes the loose crumbs away and lays the remains of a rather detailed map on my desk in front of me.
You see this?
My heart sinks as I survey the map. I know the sights of Egypt like the cracks in my sweating palms. What I scry is not accurate.
I think you were swindled, old man. I hope you didn't pay more than your tab for this. Incorrect, my dear boy. You see, this map happens to be the key to hundreds of Egyptologists' failures. But the key to your success.
It would be a lie to suggest I wasn't intrigued, so fervently sipped my drink and allowed Frobisher to continue.
The location of Sutekh-Amon's tomb has never been discovered. And why? This map was allegedly written in 2400 BC, and it's a dashed fine affair that it landed in the hands of a specialized cartographer such as myself. You see? The plains of Amun's Vale.
For 100 years, the very best dug there and found nothing.
Yes, exactly. Because they were in the wrong place.
He traces an unusual bend on the map with his finger, following a curve of the Nile I do not recognize.
A salt basin. And not just any old basin. 5,000 years ago, this was a floodplain. And you see how they've marked this basin on the map?
These lines, they look like lightning. The penny drops. Oh my god. A storm. The gods set. Sutekh-Amon. I finish my tumbler in a rushed gulp. The burn of the alcohol is overpowered by the extreme sensation of hope, drive, and ambition that I haven't felt in some time. How much for that map, Frobisher?
It's yours, my dear. I only ask that when you find the damn thing, you remember who led you there. As for the discovery itself, you'll find grander riches, darker secrets, and more ancient knowledge than anything a boy king could offer. You've an instinct for these things, Hartswell, and I knew you are the one who will take us both to glory when you find that tomb.
The one small exchange has led me to possibly the most prosperous moment of my life. I spent weeks upon weeks, calling favors upon favors, and banking my entire life savings just to secure me this opportunity. I know that there will be more hardship to come. We have reached the Dry Wadi, a desolate canyon, unyielding in its slopes of sharp descent. The valley sits like a scar on the land, as if carved into the earth by the gods themselves. Certainly the wreckage of an ancient riverbed, and only succeeded by unusual stalactites of salt rock which plunge from the ground like old teeth from an ancient rotting mouth. The atmosphere of this place is different. We have stopped to camp for the night, but the intention of the place is palpable. The men have become restless. Some have ground the rock salt itself and sprinkled it in circles around their tents. Through the dunes we came into a decline, leading down in between two sharp mesas which grant us protection from nature's winds and occasional sandstorms. They even offer a little shade, though it does little to repel the heat, which seems to infect us all like a disease. I am in my bed, wrestling with insomnia like it is in the bedroll with me, shaking and beating me with a purpose. That's when the sound excuses me from my nightly perturbing domestics. A howling, high-pitched and warning. Heckles which rouse not only myself, but dozens of my men from their sleep. As we gather outside our camps, The dark silhouettes of large-eared mongrels congress on either side of the mesas as if to flank us.
Jackals! It is an omen, Effendi. They mean for us to leave this place.
Wild dogs. Are you scared of wild dogs, man? Get back to sleep. If the mere cries of wildlife unsettle these men, then they're all hat and no cattle. I say let the desert put a little hair on their chest. I crawl back into my tent, slug the remnants of my hip flask and wrap my pillow around my head. I will not be shaken by ridiculous superstition. When I awake, I am notified that several men have left during the night. Superstitions mean a lot around these parts, especially where ancient ruins and potential curses are concerned. To hell with them. For every weak man that leaves, only the strong remain. These sands play tricks on a man's mind. I can feel them working on mine already. I need to be strong for what comes next. Every time I close my eyes, the nightmare descends. Visceral, vivid, and violent. Revolting memories I am forced to relive in my sleep, as if held prisoner in my own mind, paralyzed and unable to escape. It was the night before I was to travel back to Egypt on my quest. As I packed the remainder of my things, my wife accosted me like the biblical plagues.
Please, Jacob, you don't need to do this.
She was pleading with me. Since I announced my expedition, she'd been trying to hold me back. You don't seem to understand, woman. How many times must I tell you? You think if I had found Tutankhamun's tomb, we would still be here right now? In this pitiful lodging, living out the rest of our days unknown, without respect or renown.
We would have each other. That ought to be enough. This obsession with Howard Carter has to stop. I don't recognize you anymore.
She stared at me with glazed eyes which were once full of spark, which used to calm and comfort me, but now pitted black voids, lifeless and despairing. When we first met, she was a real corker, quite the catch. Her rolling blonde locks reminded me of the desert dunes. Weeks of grief and nights of mourning had reduced her fairy tale complexion to a weathered mess, like the blotchy parchments of my frantically scrawled notes that I was carefully packing.
It's not your fault, you know.
Her voice cracked, and I knew what was to come. I will not hear it.
Jacob, why won't you talk about it? We lost a child, a son. We are allowed to be angry and to grieve. It just feels like you're running away, but you're running to a place that I can't follow.
God damn it, woman. I am not running. I'm doing this for us. Why can't you see that? This is going to make things better. This expedition is going to seal our future. My future.
You're leaving me alone. I can't do this by myself. And you shouldn't have to either.
So you'd rather I rot away in this house, bury my dreams the same way we buried him? The words spat from my mouth like a rattlesnake's venom. She recoiled as if bit, and a gentle whimper escaped from her lips. The reflection of the fire shone in her tears, like the heat of the pain I'd caused her, flowed from her soul in embers. She quietly composed herself and left the room. A lightning bolt of remorse cracked through my heart for a split second before I adjusted myself and continued packing. As ever, I wouldn't look back, only forward. This was my purpose. The constant barrage of night terrors I must endure begin this way, with this broken scene which I will never be able to fix. My beautiful bride, she never fully grasped my endeavours. The pin I will get to tack for myself in the map of history is to be greater than any mortal folly I must suffer in the meantime. The descent through the Dry Wadi had its immediate impact on the group. As soon as we found ourselves surrounded by the sheer walls of the cliff, there was a silence. So thick and tangible that no one spoke, for an unknown fear of disturbing the sacred quietness. After a day or so of slow, considered travel through the gorge, like we were blood cells advancing through a giant vein in the desert, the signs were clear. I had been referring to Frobish's map, questioning every aged peel and the intent of every brushstroke. And then we found it. Inset to the cliff wall itself, unmistakable. A stack of bricks, each one taller than my men, piled up inside a stone rectangular frame. The familiar etchings of various gods aimed toward the bricked entrance, coupled with weathered pillars and ornate carvings, framing the certain entrance to a long-forgotten landmark. There was no buzz of excitement, only hushed murmurs of trepidation from the men, as we set up camp for the last time, preparing ourselves for the work ahead. Month 1, Day 20. We are weeks in and have made great progress with the initial survey of the area. The sun continues to scorch tirelessly, but my men are holding fast. Scaffolding erects around us, and although progress is slow, I can feel my anticipation building by the day. An outbreak of lice has infected the men, making the physical discomfort more challenging. Month 2, Day 4. We continue to clear the wadi and set up routes and access points around the site. The work is backbreaking, and heatstroke is proving ferocious. Impatience is rewarded with men succumbing to their beds for days. We are exhausted. Month 4, Day 17. Another handful of men have left the group. The service of the weak-willed will not be tolerated. The once bricked entrance has nearly been fully uncovered, allowing us first passage into the tomb itself. Many camels have been struck by a strange malady, causing throngs of flies to feed on the carcasses. Time spent out here becomes increasingly dangerous. Month 5, Day 12. We had just set first foot inside the entrance of the tomb, when a raucous crack split open the skies. Smogs of the blackest storm cloud eclipse the sun. A symphony of lightning, and a downpour of the sweetest rain I'd ever felt on my cracked and desiccated skin. No sooner than the men began to dance in joy that the canyon echoed with the trill of 1,000,000 croaks. Frogs began to emerge from every crack in the mountain and fall around us in a swarm. Several men, a touch too previous, wailed about curses and omens and took off, scrambling desperately. For the rest of us? Well, we were thankful for the respite and free protein. Yes, we shall certainly eat well tonight. I must admit, the conditions are questionable, foreboding even, but I mustn't look a gift camel in the mouth. Month 9, Day 30. The nights seem to grow longer. The nightmares worsen and my patience wanes. This damned tomb seems to be plaguing me like the very sun. Sometimes, at night, I find myself moving up to the tomb entrance and resting just beyond its threshold. Something about the cold, cavernous stone hugs me. Something calling, comforting me, beckoning me inside. Month 12, Day 4. More damned setbacks. Curious, though. Having cleared the antechamber and working our ways deeper, our men struck a thick, crystalline coating. We have determined the compound is salt, but not one of us has ever seen a formation quite like this. And to what end? There are whispers amongst the men that it is a ward of ancient magical protection, but this has never been observed in a tomb of royalty before. It is hard to keep my antagonism at bay as I yell at my men. Superstition has no power in the realms of historic scientific discovery. Month 15, Day 9. It has been well over a year since we began our dig. Of the 100 men we set out with, now under 10 remain. My dream is tattering like this very crypt, and the Queen whispers to me in my sleep. Fights over dwindling supplies have broken out. Fear and notions of sorcery have led others to flee. We have carved through the layer of salt, 10 inches thick, which encrusts the final gateway to the bowels of this hellish burial ground. The final seal awaits. Months of hardship, determination, and wavering spirit have led us to this moment. We stand before an opening, chiseled out of the salt rock wall, giving way to 2 grand stone doors, held together in the centre by a large circular stone seal. A depiction of the damned Sutekh-Amon, embellished with surrounding symbols of storms, death, and chaos. A pit in my stomach grows. This is not in keeping with traditional ways of reverence to a loved queen. My own reverence is now all but anger. Smash the damn thing to bits. I order my men, who double take in confusion. Take those pickaxes and break the damned seal! This is what we're here for. Bleary-eyed and exhausted, the men exchange reluctant and panicked glances before striking the seal with what little strength they have left. As chips and cracks begin around the seal, my mouth is filled with the unusual taste of iron. Small dark streams begin to drip from the damage in the seal, splattering onto the dusty floor in thick, viscous blobs. The seal appears to be bleeding. More! Hit it harder! I hear myself yell, unsure I am even in control anymore. With a final crack, the seal shatters, sending glazed fragments cascading from the doors. A pool of crimson gushes out. It runs across the chamber floor, flooding into unnoticed carved hieroglyphs and symbols, illuminating what my tired mind can only quickly decipher as words of hex and warning. The giant limestone slabs acting as doors, impossibly heavy, grind open, as if welcoming us into the darkness, so black and thick that it seems to creep out, infecting the chamber we are stood in. A freezing foreign wind gusts, rushing in from behind us, sucking into the tomb's depths, a deep inhale from a mouth that has not breathed for millennia. Loose rocks begin to fall and clatter from the ceiling around us, and the cliff noticeably begins to shake as we hear booming cracks condemning the foundations of the crypt. My remaining men cry out in fear, some quivering and sobbing out of unspeakable terror, and run for their lives at what no man dare witness. I am abandoned. I stand, facing the cold blackness as the rumbling quiets, and consider what great destiny awaits me inside. It is time to uncover my legacy. I pick up and light a torch, and step deftly past the doors. My footsteps reverberate through the tunnels, the light from my torch fighting a losing battle against the encumbering dark. I seem to almost float through the corridors, my arm outstretched, caressing the painted and carved walls, feeling the dusty stones scratch against my shaking hands. I recognize more depictions of Queen Sutekh-Amon, an ancient story told in delicate pictorials, still surprisingly vibrant and utterly captivating. Images of the Queen's coronation, her rise to rule over a once powerful civilization. A respected ruler, a feared adversary. The further in I move, the harder it becomes to breathe. As I advance through the sandy labyrinth, the informing illustrations now tell a different story. Images of the Queen with storm clouds in her hands, isolated, practicing unholy arts and dangerous rites. Magic of chaos, storms, witchery of the desert itself. Royal priests who discovered her secret. A trial of sacrilegious witchcraft. The verdict, heresy. And a prison, a stone dungeon to confine her. Her abilities locked away for the safety of the kingdom. This is no tomb for an ancient queen. This is a vault, built to contain an ancient power beyond mortal reckoning. My mind flutters, my heartbeat dances. Like a racing chariot approaching from the blackness, my own voice echoes, screaming at me.
You're never going to find her. You're going to die here. Carter won, and you lost. She hates you. The Queen will take you.
My lucidity returns in a fog as I notice bloody marks on the tunnel walls, where I have been bashing my head for relief. For how long? Who knows? A warm trickle tickles down the side of my face like a liquid snake. For the first time in a very long time, I feel cold. It is not refreshing nor comfortable. It is a shiver like ice down my spine. I hazily turn around and with what frantic pace I can manage, head back for the opening of the tomb. The quaking returns. I have fatally underestimated this place. Almighty cracks echo through the corridor. I lift up the torch to give me sight, only to set alight centuries of thick cobwebs coating the fractured blocks above me. Displacing, shuddering apart, fiery boulders rain down around me with rage. I dive into the abyss of the passage for cover, waiting for the cries of rock to subside. I crawl up the wall, back on my feet, just in time to witness the final light of the entrance become swallowed by the darkness of the collapse. The diminishing flames of my torch shyly light the aged gold and blue adornments of the corridor's imagery. The tunnel is closed, and I am hopelessly stranded. There is nowhere now but forward. I limp on, my heartbeat raging. The taste of sand and blood between my teeth. Maybe through confusion, the shock, or the likely concussion, I loosen the grip of my torch, and it swings down to collide with my right arm. I yelp out in pain like an injured dog. Picking up the torch, now clinging to its last reserves of oil and fresher oxygen, I inspect welts and pussy balloons bubbling across my skin. It feels like my body is dying. It feels like my mind is dying. This is my legacy, and I will prove it. To Carter, to my wife, to the world. Hobbling down the narrowing alleys, kicking sand up in puffs, I reach a crossroads. The walls are engraved with images of Set. Wherever I am headed, I am getting close. There is no indication here of purpose, of sense. I turn right, only to land on my back, but my feet are still planted where I stood. I pick myself up, or perhaps I sink down. My hands touch the floor, the ceiling. Neither. It doesn't matter. They are the same. The ground becomes as water, and I hit the floor before I begin to fall. I rise back to my feet to realize I am lying on my stomach, the floor now hard as diamond. The laws of the known world have no place here, and trying to make sense of the geometry is maddening as it ebbs and flows like my failing mind. This place is a god's joke, and I am the punchline. I collapse into a heap, defeated when it begins. She's close now. You can only be so afraid before your only option is to act. I cling to the walls, leaving a trail of blood and loose fingernails behind. Sand and timeless relic ripping through my digits as I mindlessly prowl the disturbing wails. Her screams become louder as I force myself forward through the non-Euclidean network of passages and dead ends. Streams of red now pour from the seams between the walls and the ceiling, coating the tunnels in a shimmering ichor. The shrill squeals of jackals appear from every angle, as if to frighten me off like 100 men before me. Locusts appear out of the cracks in the walls, floor and ceiling, firing themselves at me like ancient warning shots alerted to my intrusion. My torch flickers like the stub of a match, its dying light licking the doorway of my final destination. The wailing stops. A grand room, decorated with all manner of the Queen's enjoyed riches. Gems of unimaginable clarity, solid golden chests, tools, trinkets, jewellery, coins. Headdresses, figures, artwork and attire. I must remind myself, this is a cell. A cage for someone, still possibly, impossibly dangerous. A black sarcophagus sits centrally in the room. On pure animal instinct, I lurch forward, ignorant of the immense wealth which surrounds it. It takes every last breath within me to nudge the lid adrift, and catch a fleeting glimpse of the most regal beauty I have ever witnessed. Closed eyes, lined thick with commanding black wings. Skin golden as her treasure, supple and untouched. Arms crossed restfully across an ample bosom, dressed in a fine sky blue linen. I blink. The unfathomable beauty is now nothing more than a fleshy husk, an umber silhouette reminiscent of something once human. Foul bandages and wrappings, stained in a millennia of the sacred queen's seeping viscera, cling to her needly. Her eyelids part, revealing exotically rich, piercing blue eyes. Her head turns towards me, our eyes meeting in the dark. Her once luscious lips, now crispy slivers of rot, purse together as she blows the dying light from my torch. I am quivering. I fall into the sarcophagus, my spent body powerless to act. In the musty dark, I lay amongst the bones and leathery mush of the condemned queen. Her skeletal arms creak to embrace me in her eternal gratitude. I take a final, laboured breath. It doesn't matter anymore. I am with my queen, as the lid of the sarcophagus slips overhead to conceal us once more. This is her legacy. This is my legacy.